Meet the mantis shrimp. It's number 2 in the countdown because it has the most amazing eyes on the planet, as Dr. Shane Ayong from the Australian Museum explains.
Vision in the mantis shrimp is extraordinarily developed. Each eye is constructed in such a way that it has binocular vision. So if it loses an eye, it can still see with binocular vision. It's so good that they seem to be able to recognize individuals. They seem to recognize the person who feeds them and the person who they've never seen before.
The mantis shrimp is number 2 in the countdown because its eyes have 16 visual pigments compared to our 3. And that's how it can scan for all colors, including ultraviolet and polarized light invisible to us. And when it detects something edible, it lines up those scanning lines like the crosshairs of a gun sight. So why does the shrimp need such extreme vision? When we watch the shrimp hunting, our massive brains are processing the information and building up our mental picture of the scene. In the mantis shrimp, however, all that processing of visual information occurs inside the eye itself, because the shrimp's brain is just too small to cope. Imagine if you could see like a mantis shrimp.
Are you all right? It's like a splitting of the world. More light than I've ever seen. Filled with light.
A doctor with the power to see what others cannot believe.
If we had eyes like the mantis shrimp, maybe we could all see our auras. Today, you don't need eye drops to see the unbelievable. All it takes is a visit to Guy Coggins at San Francisco's Aura Imaging Systems. He claims lets you see your own aura, the radiance from the energy field that supposedly emanates from all living things.
I'm going to show you the sensor box, which actually measures the electrical field from many different acupuncture points simultaneously, plus temperature and a few other things. So you can just go ahead and place your hand in the box, and these colors will be reflected around you. We're going to take Comet's aura photo. So just put Comet over there and have his paws on the special doggy sensor, and we'll take his picture in just a second. Okay, Comet, we'll take your picture. Hold it. Hold it. Okay. Okay. Here's Comet's photo. Okay. Now that is a laid-back dog. Just going. You don't see many blues and greens and whites.
Aura is the electromagnetic field around people, plants, everything basically. The fields vary. They vary in vibration. If you hear music, you wonder why music affects you emotionally. It's because music is a wavelength. Your aura is actually a wavelength too.
It's not magical, it's not mystical. It's accurate, and it will pass a double-blind study.
The study of auras goes back hundreds of years. In 1777, a German physicist first observed an electrical corona discharged from a person's hand. In the late 1800s, physicist Nikola Tesla tried to photograph this phenomenon, but his methods proved too dangerous.
And Dr. Strong tried to duplicate the same experiment in about 1916 and nearly killed himself.
Guy Coggins has worked as a years.
In those days, it took 500,000 volts to get enough light to expose film. So that sort of put it into disuse for quite a while.
An emotional reaction can trigger a change in aura, as Guy demonstrates with this kissing test.
You could try just kissing. Interesting. Wow, that's the effect.
Kirlian photography as an art and science. We dedicate this program to the general public researching the broad scope and multidisciplinary potential of Kirlian photography. Since 1970, a great amount of interest has been generated around the world in both scientific and lay communities of the potential application of this high-voltage, low-amperage photography. High-voltage photographs of human subjects could be used to diagnose illnesses, claiming in many cases at an earlier stage than conventional diagnostic means, since 1939. In response to interest exhibited around the world, it was established for the purpose of correlating, standardizing, and promoting all phases of research into the Kirlian phenomenon. This process is capable of transforming this clump of flowers and leaves into a previously unseen world of light and energy. The metal figurine transforms the unseen world graphically displayed by a photographer-artist. The full range of aesthetic potential is explored unimpeded by the rigors and controls and standards by which scientists must abide. Colors dance before the eyes as a result of a short exposure to a pulse of high voltage, high frequency, low amperage electricity. Here the artist has used Kirlian photography to show a leaf in all new patterns. A packet of oleander leaves bears little resemblance to its physical counterpart. This photographer combined the beauty of light photography with that of Kirlian photography and achieved this beautiful image. When asked what she felt when first seeing the combined print, she said, "It was like a feeling of seeing beyond the actual material representation of the image. I felt I was creating the illusion of a life force of ethereal energy." She stated that the emotional feeling she gets when she works with the medium fills her with a sense of mysticism, not surreal, but something within reality that is hidden and waiting to be discovered. Another photographer-artist photographing 3 fingers while flooding cyberchrome paper with light achieved this 3-dimensional play of color and shadow. There is no camera or lens in Kirlian photography. When electrically conductive subjects are placed in a high-voltage, high-frequency, low-amperage field, there will be emission of light by a luminous corona discharge at the surface of the object. The pattern of that emission can be permanently recorded when the subject is placed on photographic film. This process is called Kirlian photography. The type of equipment used varies considerably. The varograph is an example of a piece of equipment widely used among experimenters. This schematic shows a timer-controlled high-voltage supply also built and used by many experimenters. This experiment was used in a study funded by the U.S. Defense Department. A special device was used for taking fingertip photos, which holds the geometrics of the fingertip constant. Attached to the middle finger, other biomedical parameters such as galvanic skin response can be measured. This fingertip Kirlian photo reveals the blue and white corona seen when healthy, relaxed individuals are subjects. After only a minute soaking in warm water, the finger was blotted dry. The photo changes dramatically. This work was published in Science magazine, October 1976. Fingertip photos are able to reveal changes on the surface of the skin in this photo, in the upper right area of a wart. A Kirlian photo of an elbow changes dramatically after an accidental shock on the elbow. Depending upon the type of apparatus and film used, relaxed individual fingertips photograph with an even blue and white corona. The same fingertip photographed during an emotionally aroused state changes to orange. Another individual in an angry state reveals this red blotch. Using a krypton gas-filled bulb as a stage instead of a metal electrode, this fingertip photograph shows an individual focusing on thoughts of warmth and love. With the same technique, this person's photo changes dramatically when he is feeling outrage and anger. This is a photograph of fingertips of 2 individuals placed side by side and asked to imagine a sexual fantasy with each other. Again, the red color of emotional arousal and a blending of their individual coronas. There are numerous studies pointing to the use of this technique to determine interpersonal relationships. This photo of two individuals angry with each other shows a bar that develops between them. Again, using a krypton-filled bulb as a stage, this fingertip photo shows two persons thinking warm thoughts of each other, and a bridge develops between them. The German magazine Esoterra describes an interpersonal study conducted with Kirlian photography. Two individuals in a psychiatrist's office were asked to put their fingers next to each other and take this picture. The top fingertip is the man's, and at the bottom, the woman's. They were asked to return once a week for 3 weeks. A week later, they returned. The Kirlian photos revealed the man to be very attracted to this woman, but her corona discharge indicated she did not feel an attraction towards him. The second week revealed the man to be extremely persistent, and it looked as if she might be more responsive. The third week shows two bright, happy coronas blending, or as the German caption reads, verschmelzen, and we are told they are living happily ever after. We are not limited to fingertips. Any object or any part of the body can be photographed. Dentists are beginning to explore this technique for their own use. The front cover of Dental Dimensions reveals this tooth with a cavity in the upper left area, and inside layout shows a healthy tooth. Plant research is a primary area for Kirlian photography. Rapidly growing tissue at the tip of an onion root reveals a bright, intense corona. These particular plant galls, which are a type of plant cancer, hardly visible in a usual photograph, appear brightly evident via the Kirlian technique. This soybean is dry and ungerminated. After 1 day germination, note the intensity in the area where the root will emerge. After 3 days, observe the root tail is now well formed in orange. Details in the root tip can clearly be observed. One of the inexplicable phenomena that a number of experimenters reported is the phantom effect. It has been repeated by many American investigators as well as investigators around the world. This ivy leaf reveals the typical corona discharge of its species. If a portion of the leaf is removed, a typical picture would appear this way. However, what occurs on occasion is a photograph of the portion that was removed. In this experiment, there is a piece of opaque plastic over the cut portion of the leaf indicating that this phantom cannot be escaping water vapor or gases from the uncut portion of the leaf. The image will even go through a barrier, a mystery. Also in the area of parapsychology, the fingertip photo of Uri Geller in a relaxed state dramatically changes when he projects his energy. The importance of healing to medicine is now becoming recognized. The graduate nurses at New York University attend classes in laying on of the hands healing. Its future in medicine awaits proper documentation by a device which should be able to record objectively this energy believed to be transmitted. The fingertip photograph of a healer at the left and her patient on the right is prior to healing. The shift is dramatic as she turns on her healing energies. This black and white photo shows at the bottom her normal state and projecting healing energy on top. Does this technique reveal energies not measurable by other means? Another area on the fringes of acceptance in medicine is acupuncture. These fingertip photos are of a man suffering from rheumatoid arthritis before acupuncture and after acupuncture. This Kirlian computer-enhanced hand photo is from Romania. There is a great deal of interest in Kirlian photography in this country where it is government-funded, supporting substantial research in the field. Their laboratory has a budget of over $1 million a year. Researchers not only photograph the surface effects of corona discharge, but also use a technique called electronography to look through the body, and their technique enables them to scan the entire body. With a diagram of the system, you can better understand the positioning of both patient and equipment. They are also able to use a transparent electrode to transmit the information through low light level video cameras. These images are then transmitted to a computer and displayed on a video screen, such as in this view of the abdomen of a patient. Analysis of the Kirlian photograph can be performed in many ways. One of those ways is through patterns recognition that can be achieved by projecting a color photograph through various filters to obtain different spectral information. One of the promising systems for analyzing the corona discharge is currently being tested in Australia. The object is placed on a transparent quartz electrode. A low light level video system is employed to transmit all the information to a device that records the intensity and plots it against a spectral analysis of the image. pH solutions show the differences in the photos of a fingertip buffered in the known pH value and air dried before being photographed. The use of estrogen is depicted in the series, showing its effect on a 70-year-old woman and a 29-year-old woman, before and after taking the tablets. The effect of a particular drug, Valium, is shown on the corona discharge of a middle-aged male. There is evidence that Kirlian photography can be used to determine the point of ovulation, and, therefore, use it as a monitor in birth control. It can be seen on the 12th day in the bright full corona that occurs. This may have some relationship on the secretion of estrogens. There are many other potential diagnostic uses of Kirlian photography, as in detecting cystic fibrosis. This study was funded by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The results of this study indicate that it is not only possible to identify patients with cystic fibrosis, but they indicated that cystic fibrosis carriers could be detected as well. The investigations were extended to double-blind studies confirming these findings. Compare the normal individual A with the cystic fibrosis patient B and the carrier C. Genetic counseling after the results of these tests can become an important factor in the future. Cystic fibrosis, a usually crippling and fatal disease, can possibly be eliminated by having it detected in advance. In one study, the coronas of 100 rats with laboratory-induced cancer of the spine and 100 healthy rats were compared, and the change in the corona is quite marked. Work done by a clinical psychologist in Wichita, Kansas, studied differences in coronas in patients suffering from cancer and in normal individuals. The differences can be readily seen in this study. Studies in early cancer detection were done at Monmouth College, New Jersey, in the study of a female patient, age 53, with carcinoma of the breast, and shows no change in the corona of the fingertip after washing. This holds great promise in cancer detection. Hopefully, the study will be performed on a larger scale on a greater number of types of cancer. There has been work done not only in looking at the fingertips of people with cancer, but actually looking at the tumors themselves. An example being a benign tumor 2 hours after surgery. Compare the difference of this malignant tumor of the breast taken 2 hours after removal. In its formative stages, the International Kirlian Research Association focused its attention on developing a liaison between the various segments of the international scientific community, providing a common forum for the exchange and dissemination of information, development of viable standards of equipment and research, and the attraction of other researchers to the field, as well as alerting the medical community to the potential future application of Kirlian photography. To this end, in addition to correspondence, newsletters, building of a central repository of information, and arranging meetings between the various researchers, a series of seminars were also held. They were held in such prestigious places as the New York Academy of Medicine, Drexel University, National Institutes of Health, Bethesda, Maryland, United Nations, and the New York Academy of Sciences. IKRA has now received its tax-exempt status and is actively seeking funding from private sources, industry, the U.S. government, and foundations for a fourfold development program. 1. The establishment and equipping of a Central Research Center laboratory. 2. Experimental and in-depth research projects. 3. Development of educational materials which would be made available to the educational and scientific communities via mailouts, slideshows, tapes, in-field seminars, and specialized training sessions anywhere in the world. 4. Enlarging and upgrading the Central Information Repository and the communications liaison between the members of the international scientific community. Taking into consideration the progress that IKRA has made to date, with its only resources being monies derived from membership fees and its workforce of dedicated volunteers, It must be obvious that with sufficient funding at its disposal, tremendous steps can be taken in the development of this new technology. It is not improper to suggest that such development could provide dramatic breakthroughs in fields such as medicine, psychology, biology, psychiatry, and natural and material sciences, and would benefit a wide spectrum of national life, including commerce and industry, and possibly lead to the development of other technologies not yet known.
Now we're just sitting together, and we're just a little kiss, just an ordinary little kiss. And if you look in the background, you see how the red picks up? That's because both of our energies moved more into that level of consciousness. You see how we look at each other? You see how it changes? You can see the dynamics of the interaction. You see the bright spot right between the two of our heads?
Bright spot, right.
Yeah, and you see how when we move our heads apart, how the bright spot just goes away. We have 3 methods of photographing the energy around your body or displaying it. One method is the more modern method, which uses amplification. We have the original Krillian process. You might be more interested in the Krillian method. In the Krillian method, we place your hand over a conductive plate. The electricity actually goes through the film and exposes. And what we do is we photograph the energy field around a single finger twice. We do it once in the normal state, and then again when we ask the person to concentrate. Psychic healers, artists, musicians, people that actually have the ability to let the energy flow through their body get a tremendous rise in image brightness and have a photographic record of it. Bookkeepers, engineers, accountants, people that tend to have a good cerebral grasp of the world tend to stay very similar whether they're in the normal state or whether they're in their concentrated state. People with a lot of emotional turbulence, the student just before finals. You can see how the inside of the aura has this turbulence in it. Angry people. And we found that people that are close emotionally, couples, people that have a lot in common, will very often look similar. In this case, they looked identical in their concentrated state. It's only slightly different in their normal state. And people who stare out windows, people who do a lot of astral traveling, people who do deep transcendental meditation, sometimes don't expose at all, because although they're here physically, psychically or emotionally or whatever the camera actually exposes, they're gone. And this person here was able to return just a little bit with concentration. This is more of an average person. We also have a more modern method based on amplification. This red is passion, intellect, and very, very high spiritual leanings. One of the most asked questions is how the camera works. The camera actually picks up the electrical field around your body and it displays it as light in images. I'll try a little drawing. So you would imagine that you have the chair here. You have a person sitting on this chair. We'll just draw this person here. And this person will actually put their hand on the probe which will charge their body. Okay, as they do this, the frequency builds up on their body and it starts to form waves like that. There's one wave. There's 2 waves. The probe's up on top. Pick these waves up. And they bring this down through several wires. This is converted into electrical energy and placed into the unit, which converts it into lights and colors, which you see in the photographs. These probes she's placing her hand on actually emit radio frequency. The radio frequency goes through her body. Her whole body becomes the antenna. The transmitting antenna is picked up by the receiving probes. There are hundreds of these little probes centered all around her. Each one of these probes has its own receiving antenna. These little antennas are all connected together through a high-speed multiplexer. This information is delivered to the computer where it's processed and displayed as light and sound. Now, you can actually see on the oscilloscope behind here that as you get a probe closer, the energy increases. As you pull it further back, the energy decreases. And this is how you display the energy. Well, we now have an international organization. We've been selling OR equipment, or basically truth-telling equipment, as you might have mentioned earlier. The first diagnostic techniques ever displayed were when he had the local commissar came over, or the local chief, or whatever they call him there. Anyway, he took his fingertip photo and it came out blank. He wasn't there. And 3 days later, he got the flu. His wife also, they were doing this every day. She took hers and she came out blank. And 3 days later, she got the flu. I believe that I could make my fingertip brighter.
Brighter?
Brighter with my thoughts. And I actually could. I found out that many of my friends could actually make their fingers much brighter than mine. So it gave me a really good perspective.
Okay, let's try me on this.
Okay, if you want to place your finger on the A, press down.
That's supposed to be an A there, huh?
That's a letter A. It's just the pressure of just your finger, about 1 pound pressure. It will expose the film.
Okay, and I feel a little bit of a tingling
Okay, now place your finger on the B. Press down about the same amount of pressure. Now this time, just allow the energy to flow down your arm and concentrate on your fingertips, just allowing the energy to flow through your body. Okay. And we'll pull the film out. This will take about a minute to develop. And while this is developing, I can show this chart here. These are Kirlian photographs that have been done over the years. This is a photograph of a psychic healer in their normal state. This is the same psychic healer when she was asked to concentrate. And you can see you have a photographic record of the increase in intensity. This is a bookkeeper in his normal state, and this is the same bookkeeper when he concentrated. You see how there...
What's difference?
Yeah, right, because he had a very strong mental grasp of the world. Emotional turbulence, anger, and this is my favorite one. This is a kissing Kirlian. This is a Kirlian photograph of a couple in their normal state, and here they are again when they're kissing. If you look very, very closely, you can actually see a bridge which developed between them.
Oh. You know of a person who we both know that has the ability to put out a lot of energy, and she even causes computer floppy disks to be erased around her. Have you ever run into anybody like that before?
Very few people, but there are people that can do that.
Yeah, this person's name is Laurie.
Yeah, psychokinetic.
And she's wondering how she could kind of turn that down a little bit. You got any ideas?
Meditation?
Meditation?
I think she probably can control it.
Well, she's having a problem because she gets to pecking on this computer and gets around these tapes and they start being demagnetized.
Well, if you're psychokinetic and you're tapping on a computer, depending on what thoughts you're having at the time will influence the energy fields which you put out.
Have you ever experimented with looking at people who were sick and had cancer and all sorts of blockages and things like that? Does that show up?
Yeah, and the techniques that show up are very complicated. They've done a lot of research in the early 1970s on diagnostic Kirlian. I think they diagnosed several forms of cancer. Let's see, cystic fibrosis was easily diagnosed by it. There was even a study done for birth control using Kirlian as a technique to detect ovulation.
Let's say cancer before it becomes really bad and you can go in and have some work done and maybe save your life. Maybe this could be used in that way.
It is.
It is?
It was being used in Romania up until recently. It's a very complicated, time-consuming technique, though. They have to take a series of photographs under different situations.
Well, it looks to me, as I view this whole situation, is that people who are clairvoyant can see this all the time anyway, can't they? Don't they see about the same thing we're seeing on that screen?
Yeah, many gifted people actually do see the colors around people, and the colors they see are the same as what we see on the screen. You can recognize changes in color 20 times faster than character changes. So by looking at the colors, you can get an idea of how you're feeling much quicker than you could by looking at a meter or listening to a tone or reading a line of text on a computer screen.
I think that a person can have their aura examined and tell a little bit about their soul development. Do you not agree with that?
That's what the equipment is used for.
Mm-hmm. This shows Guy Coggins and his friend. So Guy, kind of explain what we're doing here as we're going along.
Okay, I'm there. What we're doing is we're just balancing right now. We're just sitting together. And we're just a little kiss, just an ordinary little kiss. And if you look in the background, you see how the red picks up? That's because both of our energies moved more into that level of consciousness. You see how we look at each other? You see how it changes? You can see the dynamics of the interaction. You see the bright spot right between the two of our heads?
Bright spot, right.
Yeah, and you see how when we move our heads apart, how the bright spot just goes away.